Good afternoon to Professor Ajay Singh and all the participants who are here for this 5-day Atal FDP on modeling of water resources system, and myself, Dr. Sanjeev, and I'm working as an associate professor in Department of Civil Engineering, Kunya Lakshmi Education Foundation. It's a deemed to be university in Andhra Pradesh near your Vijayawada. In the morning session topics which I have seen, I found that the basic of hydrological modeling and water resource system has been covered. And so here I will try to cover some overview of a slide model. And now these days, I'm doing full screen. Just wait. Okay, now I think it is visible to everyone. Anyone can put a message in the chat box so I can understand that my screen is the voice is very raised. Yes, okay. Thank you. So today I will discuss on slide model, and I assume that the basic about hydrological modeling and other thing has been covered in the morning. I thanks to Professor Ajay Singh sir for inviting me in this AICTE Atal Online FDP program, and I thanks from my university side also to the Central University of Jharkhand. So now already we delayed 15 minutes. So before going to exactly on the sweat model, now these days the modeling concept has been increasing day by day. You will find a lot of different models are there around you when you go through the different journal publication or literature review. You found different model. Even now these days, the data science, especially AI and other technique like neural network has been implemented in your hydrological sciences also. But again the question is that how will you select a model to define your problem and to find the solution. So normally when 30-40 years before, or 3 or 4 decade before, when this concept came, people start developing physical equation and combining the different physical equation to develop a model to find the solution. So normally what happened when we describe about a model, we normally say it's a simplified version of your reality. Some model present the reality in a very good version, some may be lacking, or maybe somewhat similar to the reality. So why the concept of modeling came arise slowly in your hydrological sciences? Because we want to know the answer, what are the different things are happening in nature, and sometimes if adverse effect is there, we try to diagnose and we try to forecast that process future in terms of both qualitative and quantitative approach in our real world. So what is actually the need of modeling in your hydrological sciences? So there are many hydrological parameters which you may have seen, which is very much difficult to measure directly. And sometimes you are able to measure also, but for a long term, it become expensive, and sometimes some difficulty you face to measure in a long term duration. So with the help of model and the existing data, we can we can forecast the thing, we can diagnose the hydrological process. If some problem is there, we can find the solution. So some of the major important tasks in hydrology, normally when we talk about your runoff. So because of the runoff, the water resources management we used to do, and especially when we talk about your runoff or a stream flow, the empirical model, a hydrograph or a unit hydrographs play a very important role in your water resource system. So the modeling provide a platform or a tool to simplify the process, to get the solution, to implement the solution, and to divert the adverse effect of your nature in a proper way to serve the humanity well. So why the model is only required? You can gauge the watershed, you can gauge some hydrological process, and you can find the effects. So often the thing is that you can do for a small area, but when we talk about a larger river basin, it's somewhat become difficult. So that's why the model give us very reasons that they can be used to satisfy our need. So often when we talk, the model become very economic, they can save your money, and the most important thing, they can save the time also. So when the saving of time is there, it's very helpful to find the solution, and we can implement our solution to adverse the effect. Sometimes what happens when you are gauging the things in a river, it sometimes is a risky, or sometimes you are tampering the natural condition where the things may be changed also. That's why the model play a very important these role. Without going in the field, you will try to simulate the different process on your computer or in your lab. Sometimes what happen, the third point I have written, sometimes the real environment is very complicated. Okay, so we cannot understand all the things. So sometimes model just tell us to understand the things properly, especially our agriculture system or hydrological system. That's why we need a model, but selecting a model and going on the model, that also play a very important role in day-to-day life. When we talk about the model classification, the Colin in 1988, he has given some classification like empirical model, conceptual model, stochastic model, and physical based model. So all these have some relation to the physical process. Some may not be having a relation to the physical process, but they are able to give you the solution. Suppose if I talk about the physically based model, which now around the world all are using to simulate the different process. These physical model have a realistic approach where your different physical process are with the help of different governing equation are implemented and connected to find a proper solution of a nature problem. So I will not go much in detail because there are a big classification of model. Just to remember that hydrological models are also classified on the basis of their process, how they are taking the data and how they are giving the output and their relationship. So what model you will choose? So the model is a requirement because you have a problem. You cannot go to the field for a longer duration. Sometimes you may tamper the natural condition. So all these, and sometimes you have the limitation also. So what model you have to choose? When you see the list now, so many models are there. And it's not like that the other model is good, this one is don't give a perfect result. It's all depend upon your requirement. So requirement play a very important role in selecting a model. So the first important thing, the model which you are choosing require input data, which will be available to you very easily, or you can obtain, because a model cannot work without the observed data. You need some data to run the model and to simulate the things. So sometimes what happen, a model can work in a specific area, but sometimes it fail in a different watershed because of the properties of that particular area or the climatic condition or the natural condition. So that also you have to look. Sir?
Two things you do. First, you go to slideshow, and then your slides are not moving.
So slides are moving, sir?
No, we are only still at first page. Yeah, just now it moved.
Okay, sir. Okay. No,
go to slideshow. Slideshow.
Okay, okay. Now it is okay. The slideshow is there. Can anyone? Okay. Now this slide is visible. Sir, anyone can now the full screen is visible or not?
It is visible, sir.
Already I have done the slideshow and I have shared, but still having the problem. Okay, you want to share the entire screen?
Oh, yes.
Now it is visible?
Yes. Yes, yes, clear. Fine. Yes, good. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Sorry for that. Okay, so I was discussing about how to choose a model. So in that, the first important point about the data, the input data. Whatever the data you required for any model, it is available or easily you can opt in. That should be the first criteria before you go to select a model. Sometimes what happen, you see different models are there, and researcher had applied the different models, and it's not every time possible that that typical model or the particular model can be applicable in your area also. So you should have a proper understanding the basic governing equation of that model, whether it is applicable or not, because sometimes some properties of watershed changes or any area changes and which fail a particular model in a particular region. But now these days most of the model are applicable around the world, especially of a physical based model, because they are governed on the physical equation or realistic things. So you should check the local conditions, whether it's applicable your model or not, and how the different governing processes are described in your model. Then appropriate scientific approach, whether that model has taken the proper approach in defining the different physical governing process. Sometimes what happens when the people develop a model, slowly different phases of development of models are there. In that, what happens, there are certain assumptions are there. This sometimes you also take in your particular modeling, which may fail your model in your area. So you have to check the approach also, whether that approach is correct or not. So, and the other thing is the model should be economically feasible. So these days, many models are there which are freely available, and the data used for those also freely available. You need to collect only the certain data for your modeling approach. But still, there are many physical based models in the present world which will cost you a lot, and even the data input required for them will also cost. So that's why the process of developing new model, and especially in your data science, become a huge coming exposure, or you can say that people are trying to moving toward the AI and data science or the soft computing to find this solution in your hydrological sciences, because that was cheaper as compared to the other model where you need a lot of data and still a model is a costlier. So normally in a modeling process, what we used to do, a real system is there. We try to formulation of a model is there with the help of different physical equations, and we try to give the input to the different physical equations to the model, and we try to put the input and we try to get output on the basis of those physical equation and what you have input. Finally, you draw the certain conclusions from there, and you try to interpret your result with the conclusion which you have got from the direct approach of your real system. Like I will give an example. When we go for a soil erosion modeling, we also used to measure the soil erosion with the help of gauging station and different uh, techniques. And same, we formulate a model and we get a result from a model with a particular equation for your soil erosion, and we try to find whether those are related to each other or not. Sometimes what happens in real system, the scale is less. The scale is not large, it's a small scale, but in the model you can go for a large scale also. So this is the normal formulation process of any model or the modeling process which everyone used to do. Even if the data science person is creating a model for soil erosion, or they are creating a hydrograph, they also have to go with the same process. Now when we talk about the hydrological modeling, which in recent years becoming popular, I assume up to now also the hydrological modeling is very popular to find out the different solutions. So whatever the hydrological models are there present, they have only the process of the transformation of their precipitations or the rainfall to the runoff. The major objectives, most of the hydrological model is this only. Second, some hydrological models are also concentrated on the soil erosion process. So there they try to find the detachment and transportation of sediment. In between, there may be a lot of other processes are there which has also be governed by your any hydrological modeling system. So model developed and hydrological modeling came, and people start using. The reason behind that hydrological models are used that much, because they will save your time, and the area will be a large. In observation system or real system, it's very difficult to go for a measuring of a large basin. So the hydrological models now these days are serving the complete purpose, and with the help of that, you can go for a water resources allocation. Especially there are certain models which are governing they are simulated about inflow and outflow of a reservoir. With the help of that, you can distribute the water to the different sector. They also use for the flood control. Now these days, the flood modeling, the depth of flood in the downstream can be predicted with the peak discharge, and you can have a damage due to the flood. And in the next season, if that peak occurred, then you can warn the people to shift to the different places. The models are also used to the assessment of your impact of land use change, because if you see in the last 2 decades, there has been drastically change in the land cover, and what that land cover give an impact on runoff and sediment, that can be also be studied with the hydrological models, and you can implement some technique to reduce those. And the other point, the climate change. So the forecasting of the climate change is also happening on the basis of your historical data, and they are giving the output in terms of your rainfall, temperature. And if those scenario can be used, you can easily forecast you also about the runoff and the soil erosion or the other impact on your water resources system. Then the hydrological model can be also used for environmental pollution control, especially a point and non-point solution. You can identify how much their impact is there, and you can suggest some remedial measures to reduce the impact of your different pollution on your environment. So overall, the hydrological modeling giving a good tool to evaluate the historical, present, and the future impact on your any like runoff or sediment, and they will help you to identify the things properly, and on the basis of that, you can suggest some remedial measure to implement to divert the negative impact of your different negative impacts which are happening in your environment. So now, if I come here directly on the SWOT model for that we are here. So the SWOT model stands for Soil and Water Assessment Tool, and it is developed by United States Department of Agriculture Research Services, and the person behind it is Dr. J.G. Arnold, and he developed the model in 1991 for runoff and sediment. And after that, in the last almost 30 years, the model developed a capability that it can simulate all physical process in a watershed or a river basin. It's a completely process based, but it is a semi-distributed. Some used to say it's the physical distributed completely, some say it's a semi-distributed, because the assumptions are also in this model, and some of the process the model is not able to simulate properly, and it used to take as an average condition. It is a continuous time step model, and you can use as much of time. You can use 10 year, 20 year, 40 year, 100 years, and you can use for a 1 day also. And normally the model work on a daily time step, and this model can be used for a watershed also, and can be used for a complete river basin also. It has the ability to simulate the different process at a very low scale also and at a very large scale also. This model was developed in the view of to predict different impact of your land management, which you are doing in any watershed, especially on your water, sediment, agriculture, chemicals, and the crop yield also. So normally before people start using it for runoff, sediment, and agriculture activity, and slowly it become popular, and a lot of other modules are included, and now it is a full-fledged model which can be used for your all type of problem related to your hydrological modeling, or you can say the natural process which are involved in converting rainfall to your runoff and the rainfall impact to your soil erosion. So the major important thing of this model is it is the public domain model. It is free of cost, and it have a very good support also. You can download the model free of cost. You can install, and it provide a wide range of support from the different researchers around the world which who are using this model. This model is previously enabled with your ArcGIS, but now you can use this model with the QGIS also, because ArcGIS is not a you have to purchase license. Previously it was Linux based, but now it is a user friendly and it is embedded with your ArcGIS, and if you can use that QGIS open source software you can use, and it is completely open source, and it can integrate various spatial environmental data, including your soil, land cover, climate, and topography. So all the features of your watershed are included in this model, which you can easily simulate. So normally the major part of this model to evaluate the effect of your soil, change in soil properties, if it is happening, land use or land cover, and if any management condition you are doing on water sources, that also you can sedimentation in your water body, especially small or large water body like your reservoir, even in barrages also you can do, but you need a specific data. It has the ability for your agriculture chemical yield in large complex watershed like your non-point source pollution, and even it has the ability to simulate the point source pollution impact on your stream water quality. So when we talk about your this model, it has two phases. One is your land phase and one is your water phase. Okay, in water phase, it used to be for your stream, and the second is your water bodies. So the water bodies like your ponds or the reservoir. Sometimes the depressions are also there. They can also be modeled with this software. So land phase include the precipitation which is occurring. It used to simulate infiltration process, soil moisture condition, then percolation to your groundwater, especially your shallow aquifer or your deep aquifer, and how the moisture is varying in your root zone, in your unsaturated zone, and how the water is moving back to the from shallow aquifer to the soil. Its model can evaluate or have a potential to for simulating your evaporation and transpiration process also. So it is completely physical based with the two phases. One is the land phase and is the water phase. All the process which are occurring on land phase and the water phase can be easily simulated with the help of this model without any problem. Only the thing is that when you are going a very intensive study of a particular system, that time you need some more accurate or reliable data. So if you have the data, you can simulate each and every part of your rainfall runoff system. So when we talk about the phases, I already discussed the land phase and the water body phase. When I talk about water body phases, the water body we can simulate in this model is your reservoir and pond and your sediment settling. And in the sediment settling in the reservoir and pond, you can simulate about the nutrient and pesticide in the water body, that may be a stream or any reservoir or pond. When we talk about your land phase, the climate, it can easily have some property to simulate the future climate also for certain period on the basis of your historical input. The complete hydrological process it can simulate about the runoff. It has some agriculture the tool also which can simulate your plant growth if you have a particular data which is required by your model. The soil erosion process is completely simulated. Nutrient pesticide which is moved during soil erosion from your agricultural land can be easily simulated, and some management practices also can be simulated by this model. So the model is capable of both the phases. Only thing is that it's depend upon your requirement and the data you have. When we go for the the management, the last thing I was telling, the general management, you can go for a crop management. You can give an input data of your different types of crop grown in a particular watershed, and what are the different implement you are using. On the basis of that, how the soil moisture is varying, and how your the chemical, the fertilizer you are giving, how the chemical properties of the soil is changing, and when runoff is happening, what are the different chemicals that are moving from your soil. The second is support practice factor that we used to take in a universal soil equation. The model does not have a direct any tool where you can use the different soil management practices like your burns, terraces, check them, but it has the ability to modify the certain parameters in the model to simulate the behavior of those type of practices. And when we talk about your water management, the model has the ability to define the watershed, to define the water harvesting structure like your pond and reservoir on the basis of your requirement, and it will help you to define the different places where you can go for a water harvesting technique in a watershed. So when we talk about the land phase, I will discuss the major the process which are there in the model. Otherwise, there are so many physical processes which are governing in the governing equation are there in the model. But we'll discuss only the major part which normally every model used to be have. The first is when we talk about the three component I will discuss: hydrology, weather, and sedimentation of water bodies. So in hydrology, any type of model, the water balance used to be there. So the soil moisture, final soil moisture equal to the initial soil moisture, and plus whatever the rainfall happened on that day, runoff occurred, and evapotranspiration occurred, seepage of the groundwater. So water balance is a basic part of any hydrological model. And even when we are using the hydrological model, we used to go for a water balance of a particular watershed. So it also used to do the water balance during its simulation. The second important part is about the surface runoff. The model used to calculate the surface runoff using the SCS curve number. Okay, some may be using the different method also. The model has the ability to go for calculation of surface runoff with the help of your SCS curve number, which is well known. So the surface runoff is equal to the rainfall occurring that day minus your initial losses to the whole square divided by your rainfall occurring that particular minus your initial abstraction plus your retention. So SCS, why the SCS curve number we are using? The SCS curve number will define more appropriate value of your runoff for different type of land use. So all of you know that SCS curve number usually vary from 0 to 100 for different type of land use and different soil hydrological groups. So that combination you can use here, and it gives more appropriate result. So in this model, there is also other process like you can use a green damp equation, green damp infiltration method also. The model has the two process. One is your surface runoff using SCS curve number, or you can use the green and amp infiltration method. But about my experience, this surface runoff from SCS number will give you the better result because of the ability of your data. So somewhat in green amp infiltration equation, the data will be a problem. But this tool is a much better according to my experience, and a lot of other people have also used this. But the model has the other tool also to go for. And when we talk about your peak runoff rate, that has used to be calculated with the rational method. So Q peak is equal to alpha TC dot Q surface into area divided by 3.6 T concentration. So T concentration is the time of concentration. The model used to calculate the time of concentration for surface flow also and the stream flow also. And Q surface is the surface runoff that has been calculated from your SCS curve number, and area is the area of that particular watershed. Alpha TC is the fraction of your rainfall that occurring in that particular time of concentration. So that we also call as a modified rational method. So peak discharge is calculated with this equation. Now the other important point in the model is, as we all know, if the area is small or small watershed is there, normally what happen, the time of concentration, when we talk about the time of concentration, normally for all watershed normally used to be less than 24 hours. But when we are simulating for a large river basin like Krishna or Ganga, then the time of concentration may be more than 24 hours. So that particular part in the model is defined on the basis of your surface runoff lag when your time of concentration is normally greater than 1 day. So it is defined as Q surface equal to Q dash surface plus Q store I is to 1, and into your I minus notion R surface lag divided by your T concentration. Where is the T surface? Is this one is your discharge which is gone to your main channel, okay, from the surface, and this Q dash is your the surface runoff generated, okay. This one is generated from your watershed, and this one is the runoff which is generated but is not came to the stream, which is stored on the particular watershed in depression or something. So normally what happen if your time of concentration is increasing, the influence of surface lag and time of concentration on fraction of surface runoff which is released from the watershed to the stream. So when the time of concentration is increasing, normally what happen, the part of the runoff which is coming on watershed will be decreased and your surface lag will be increased. So normally in large basin, when you are simulating a large basin like some big river basin, so surface lag play a very important role. There are different techniques are also there in the model to calculate the surface runoff lag for the different watershed when you are doing the modeling. So just I want to say that here this play a very important role in a large basin, but otherwise a small watershed, it does not get that much of impact. Now the other process that play a very important role in hydrological modeling and in SWAT also, that is your percolation. So the percolation mainly in this model depend upon the different soil layers. So normally what happen, you can go for a single soil layer property up to certain depth that depend upon the type of soil. So the model calculate the percolation for your each soil layer in the profile, in which the water is allowed to percolate only if the water in the soil layer is exceed the field capacity. Okay, so the field capacity of that particular soil also you have to define in the model, and that will happen only when the below layer is unsaturated. If it is saturated, the percolation may not be there. So that normally governed by the this equation, SW Ly axis is equal to your so this is the volume of water that will be drained, and it will go to your the below layer when your upper layer having water above your field capacity. So this is the axis drainable volume of water in the soil layer on a given day. Then SWLY is your water content of the soil of a particular layer on a given day, and FC is the field capacity. So SWLY minus field capacity, and that will only happen when the water in the layer is above your field capacity. So the model simulate precisely about the population and the movement of your water or the moisture in your subsurface area. So which will give the model to simulate accurately the surface runoff or the runoff. Then the model is the second, the other important part is lateral subsurface flow. Sometimes what happens, the lateral flow in subsurface area also play an important role, where soil have a high hydraulic conductivity, and the below sometimes the after certain depth the below area is impermeable or semi permeable. So the model has a good ability to simulate the lateral subsurface flow, and that completely depend on the hydraulic conductivity and the properties of your soil which you have defined in your model. So Q lateral is 0.024 into 2 into SW, that is your drainable volume of water which is coming from the population. K sat is your hydraulic conductivity, and this is the average slope of that particular region, and phi D is your drainable porosity, and L is your the flow length of that particular layer. So model will simulate, and that will help you to have a complete good result of your runoff in your stream or in your watershed. The other important of any hydrological process or any hydrological model, on here the SWAT model, when we talk about the hydrological processes, the evapotranspiration play a very important role, which is varying through the different seasons. So model has the ability to simulate the evapotranspiration, and it used the three equations. It used the three methods. One is the Penman-Montiel method that was developed by Montiel in 1965, Priestley-Taylor, and the Hargreaves method. These three methods are there in your model to simulate the evapotranspiration. So the first two method when you are using, I have not put in the equation, and for you need a humidity, hydration, heat flux. A lot of data is required for the first two method. So these three method are inbuilt in your model, but the last one, a lot of people have suggested that if you have a scarcity of your data, then Hurwitz method used to give very good result as compared to the any other type of your the other two evapotranspiration methods. Okay, so because this Hurwitz method is normally based on the two two data only, two parameter only, that is your temperature, and in the temperature also it depend upon the maximum temperature and the minimum temperature of air in your day. So this will give you the easy way to simulate the evapotranspiration. So if you use this method, and even some the researcher has compared these three methods in the sweat, and they find the Hurwitz method give much better result when you require only the maximum and minimum temperature. At the same time, when the model is simulating the evapotranspiration, it simulates the evaporation separately for the soil and the plant and even the water body, and then it combined to give your complete evapotranspiration. Now, other important part of the model is the transmission losses. So when the water is moving on the surface and it is going to the channel and finally to the output, there is a lot of transmission losses are there, or you can say these are the storage which may infiltrate or populate to your groundwater. So the transmission loss is calculated by equation T loss is equal to into your effective hydraulic conductivity and the flow travel time between the 2 point into the wetted parameter of the channel into the channel length. That will give you the transmission losses. And one more important thing, when we are calculating the transmission losses in the model, the channel cross section is defined as a trapezoidal only. The channel cross section in your model is your trapezoidally, and when these transmission losses are occurring, especially from the main channel, maybe your second or third order of your stream, we assume the model assume that is the storage in the channel which may go to the aquifer. So sometimes this play a vary because some stream may be contributing flow to the channel and some may be taking water from the channel. So the transmission losses play a very important role. Now the other important thing about the weather, which I was talking normally when we any hydrological model we talk, the rainfall is a major data, even some use temperature, solar radiation, wind speed, and radar. So other different types of meteorological data is required for any hydrological model. Here in the model, the rainfall, the first meteorological data, second is your temperature, that is a maximum minimum temperature. Why we need a maximum minimum temperature? Because if you are using Hurwitz method, the maximum minimum temperature play a very important role. Then your solar radiation is required, wind speed is required, and the humidity. So all these parameters are required for the model to for a hydrological balance. Sometimes what happen when you have a time series of these different data, okay, and some data is missing in this region, then we should have a weather generator model which is based on Shapley and Williams. They have developed in 1990. So that module is used to generate the future climatic parameters also. But this weather generator, you have to prepare on the basis of your historical observed data, and this will help you to get the future data also for some year, or sometime it will help you when you're at certain gauging station, some data is missing, it will help you to generate the data or to fill the gap of that particular time series. So the weather generator itself is a big module in the model. If anybody interested, he can go to the website on the manual of sweat and they can prepare the data, but that play a very important role that I will discuss in later. Then after the hydrology, the other aspect is your soil erosion and sediment yield. So because of agricultural activities, the model when developed, it has a very important role in runoff and soil erosion only. So it used a modified universal soil equation to simulate the soil erosion and the sediment yield from your particular watershed, which I have written here, sediment 1.8, and where the surface runoff play an important role. Then your peak discharge, which we have already calculated. Area, I have written HRU, this hydrological response unit, which have the same behavior. So area you need. Then you need a K, that is your soil erodibility factor when you are collecting this data from any agency, you will get this. Then C is your cover factor, and P is your the practices which you are doing. So it is a weightage factor which you have to assigned on the basis of different activity of management for the soil erosion has been done in the catchment. Other is your LC, that is your topographic factor, length and slope, which you can calculate with the help of distal elevation or your slope method. And CRPF is the coarse fragmented factor, that how much the larger particle are present in the soil. So this is the major equation for your calculating the soil erosion and sediment yield in your watershed, which the SWET model is using. Now, when we talk about all these processes, the hydrology and the soil erosion process, now the thing is that when these things are generated at a particular place, they have to be transferred to your to the channel and finally to the outlet. So the channel routing play a very important role. So here also channel routings are there, and so that channel routing simulation is also based on your daily basis, and which make the model more efficient for a longer simulation, especially for your large catchment. But these channel routing are your hydrologic routing. Much about your hydraulic routings are not there. The model use two types of your channel routing. The first we call as your variable storage routing method, that is based on your flow into the channel and flow which is out of the channel equal to the storage. The second, the most popular, the Muskingum river routing. It use the Muskingum river routing also, which is based on your kinetic wave model. I'm not describing these two equations because these are well known to everyone and you can study from them, but it has the both ability. And if the comparison of these two routing methods are also done by the different researcher, and they have found that in some places the Muskingum is good and some places variable storage routing is good. But in my opinion, if you modeling in India, you just try to prefer variable storage routing that used to be give more result as compared to your Muskingum. Then in the channel routing, the most important thing your sediment routing. So already I told you that all processes are a continuous process and daily time step. So normally in the channel routing, the simulation in channels are based on your deposition and degradation of your channel. Both the process are calculated for the entire simulation period. Only the thing is that here the cross section assumed by your model is your trapezoidal. So they are not assuming any other type of this section. So that may be a problem, but otherwise the single type of cross section is there and which is uniform. It is not going to be changed. So it used that the amount of sediment suspended in the ridge at any moment will equal to the amount of sediment which is suspended in the ridge as the beginning of your simulation or the time period minus your amount of amount of sediment deposit in the ridge or in the stream, and plus the degradation amount of sediment that is re-entering in your re-segment. So that is the balancing mass balance of your sediment routing in a channel. Otherwise, there is a different method for calculating your deposition and your degradation of your channel. So it has a complete process to simulate your sediment routing. Now, both the water routing and the sediment routing in a channel we have done. Now, the other important part which I have told you in the starting, only the model has the capability of your simulating impound water and sediment routing. So that we discuss here. Now that you have the water body, and the water body only you can take two types in the model. First is your pond and the reservoir. So almost same type of property you need for a reservoir and a pond. So the water storage in a water body normally play very important roles. I have written that in your flood control also, and in your water harvesting, and then use of that water for your different. So the model has provision here at 4 types of water bodies: the pond, wetland, depression, potholes, and the reservoir. So like when we're talking about pond and depression, that is it used to simulate better, but when we're talking about wetland, depression, pothole, somewhat the similar properties like pond and reservoir we have to consider. So I assume that it has only the two. I used to say it has only the 2 types of water body for the simulation, that is your pond and reservoir. And in all the water harvesting structure, they use the same type of method for your flow and sediment processing. So normally when water flowing in this water body, they are originating from the watershed, and normally all these water body are assigned at the outlet of your watershed. So that a negative point, but still it has the good capability to simulate the process. So normally when we talk about your reservoir, they are used located in the main channel, and when you are simulating the thing also, that time you have to locate the reservoir at the main channel only, because they are going to receive the water from your complete catchment. But in case of pond, it is not like that. When we talk about pond, you can include the pond in your simulation, and in that particular simulation, you have to define that how much area of your watershed is draining into the pond. Whereas in a reservoir, when we are defining a reservoir, the model assumes the all water which is generated from the catchment is coming to your reservoir. But in a pond, the condition is different. You have to define that how much area is draining into the pond, because pond is a smaller structure as compared to your reservoir. When we talk about your impoundment of water routing, so the major water body should be located on your main channel of your watershed, and the model does not provide you any distinction between this is a natural water body or this is the man-made. It considered all as a man-made only. What you are inputting the data, it will consider it's a man-made only. And the water balance for the reservoir or the pond used to be doing the same way. So V is equal to your the stored water in your reservoir plus the inflow, how much inflow is came on particular day, how much outflow you have released, plus the precipitation happened from the reservoir, on the reservoir, minus your evaporation and the seepage losses from the reservoir. So this is the complete water balance of your impoundment water body, or you can see the reservoir. But in that also, the model will calculate the surface area of your reservoir that we have to define. Second, the precipitation will be calculated by the model on the basis of your how much rainfall or precipitation occur on that water surface body on the basis of the area. That evaporation will be calculated on the basis of surface area and the maximum and the minimum temperature. And the seepage will also be in that way. The last part, outflow, the model will not calculate the outflow. The outflow you have to provide. The outflow is the user data which we have to input in the model. On the basis of that only, your inflow outflow curve will be developed in the model, and on the basis of that, how much inflow has occurred. Because when we talk about reservoir, it's a man-made body and it has some certain regulation for releasing the water. So on the outflow only, your inflow will be calculated in the model. The other important thing here we talk that sediment. So for the sediment also, the simple mass balance is there, like your water, when we're talking about your water. So it used to simulate the transpose of sediment in and out from water body, whether it's a pond or a reservoir. So the sediment process model you can do in the pond also, wetland also, reservoir and pothole, which are completely identical. Okay, there is no difference. And what the sweat is used to do, the sweat used to assume that whatever the sediment which is there in the water body or coming in the water body, it is equally distributed, or it's a homogeneous system, which is in real condition it is not there. That's why some people used to call it as a semi-physical distributed model. So the sediment process is not up to that level, but it will give you the good result when you do the modeling of any water body with this system. And when the water come and the sediment coming to this water body, any water body, it used to assume that it is distributed immediately equally in all depth. But normally when we talk about water body, the sedimentation concentration usually decrease from top to the bottom. When you are like when we consider the reservoir, when we move towards the dead storage, the volume or the concentration of sediments used to be increased. So completely these things are occurring on a mass balance. So sediment of a water through the mass balance is also the amount of sediment in the water body at the end of the day, equal to the amount of sediment in the water body at the beginning of the day, amount of sediment plus the amount of sediment which is came in the water body plus minus the amount of sediment removed from water body by settling, and the amount of sediment which is transported from your water body during your outflow. So that is the mass balance of your sedimentation. Only the thing is here, the model does not assume the variation of your sediment concentration within the water depth of your water. And second important thing is here, whatever the sediment concentration you are giving to the model as an input of your water body, if the sediment concentration increase above to that input value, the model assume that settlement of sediment used to be occur in your water body, but normally that's not going to be happen. So that is the weak point. Otherwise, it used to simulate the things properly. Now, these are the certain basics of the model which I have told you in terms of hydrology and the sediment. Otherwise, when we talk about the model, all these processes are governed by another process which are occurring in the system. When we talk about runoff, the precipitation is there, abstraction losses, and retention is also there. Then your subsurface flow, base flow, so many processes are there. All processes will be simulated by the model. I have just discussed about the major upper part of your model. Otherwise, when you are simulating, you have to go one by one step about all the process in the model. What are the data requirement for the model? So the first important data required for the model is digital elevation model. Okay, so that you can get from any satellite data, that is your SRTM, or you can take Aster. Okay, even your Cartosat data is also there from your Indian. SRTM and Aster are free, or otherwise, if you have a small watershed, you can go for a survey and you can prepare your do the contour survey and you can prepare your digital elevation model. The major why we use a digital elevation model or the contour map. The first thing, it will going to delineate your stream network. With the stream network, you will define the slope of that particular area, and on the basis of that, you can delineate your stream network, maybe the first order stream, second order, whatever the order. Then this stream network will able to define to delineate the complete basin or the watershed boundary. Okay, on the basis of digital elevation on model only, the model will able to calculate the slope of that particular watershed or the basin and other morphological property like your stream properties, cross section of your stream, what is the slope of your stream bed, what is the depth, what is the width. All these things has been calculated with the help of your DM only. Here I have shown one map which is of Damodar Valley, and the delineation of a watershed has done with the Aster DM. So this is one sub basin, this is one second, and this is third. So this is complete of basin where 3 sub basins are there, and you see the light lines are showing you the watershed of that. So all these things has to be done with the help of your digital elevation model. So when we talk about this satellite imagery about SRTM, Aster, and all those things, so here the delineation of your stream or watershed completely dependent upon the quality and the resolution of your DM. Okay, so if it is a small area, you can do the survey and you can generate your own contour map and then digital elevation model that will give you the more appropriate stream network. Otherwise, as SRTM, Aster, and Cartosat, they will also give a good. Only the thing is the resolution. When I talk about SRTM, it is 90 meter. When Aster, it is 30 meter, and Cartosat is depend. Normally 1 by 1 also you will get, and if you got 30 by 30 also. The more the high resolution, the processing time will be more. Otherwise, the 90 and 30 will give you the good stream network of any area. The other input data for the model is land use and land cover. And land use, land cover, that is also you have to take from your remote sensing data only, or the satellite data, because by survey it is not possible to cover for a large area. And this land use, land cover, we normally use to define the curve number and the interception initial losses or the interception losses. So this land use, land cover data you can take from your Indian agency also, ISRO, or if you want to use the free, you can use your Landsat data. Landsat data are completely free with your 30 meter resolution, which is very good. So the land use, land cover will use to define the curve number, which is play a very important role in surface runoff generation. The other the data is soil data. The soil data will play a very important role in a process of your runoff generation and your soil erosion. So the soil erosion, soil type data, you can go in the field and you can measure. Otherwise, you can collect the data from different agencies like National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. And in that, you need the hydrological group. What is the maximum rooting depth of that particular soil? What is bulk density? What is the allowable water capacity in the soil? What is hydraulic conductivity, organic matter, soil texture, soil erodibility and electric conductivity of the soil. So this soil data is completely depend on the layer wise. Okay, so suppose you are defining the one layer of 30 centimeter. So you have all these property for this particular layer. If you are going more deeper, you have to collect the more property, because if your soil depth is more, it is very easy for the model to simulate the groundwater movement or the subsurface flow also. And these two data also be required for making the simulation more easier to prepare your HRUs. So HRUs are hydrological response unit, which are identical in properties. So on the basis of your land use and the soil, the model will prepare your hydrological response units, which are identical in features or the properties. And here one important thing, when the model works on the HRU only. It will not work on the watershed. It will try to calculate all the processes at the HRU level, and then it will aggregate and it will give you the output at a daily timestamp. So when we talk about the HRU, you can prepare the HRU on the basis of land use and the soil, and even on the slope, to make to give a good combination. You can go. So if you have more number of HRUs, the simulation will be good and the result will be also good. So when we talk about HRU, the model will try to calculate the area in all HRU, and it will have the different parameters which are affecting your surface and subsurface in all HRU, and the parameter which are affecting your erosion and the management, and input the related to your urban area irrigation, and also you can make the input through the HRU also. So HRU is the smallest unit of the simulation of this model, which will aggregate on the basis of all type of HRU in a watershed, and it will give you the output of your watershed. Then the different meteorological data which is required. You should have a rainfall or the precipitation, temperature, solar radiation, wind speed, and related humidity. These are the meteorological data which is required by the process, and these are also the governing all the hydrological process in a watershed. Now, the previously I talked about the weather generator. So if you have the historical data and you have all these statistical analysis of these data, so if you have only the precipitation and temperature data also, then also the model can work, because the solar radiation, wind speed, and relative humidity does not change that much with respect to your distance. So if any station nearby you have continuous data for a longer duration, you can use that data for other different station also for your solar radiation, wind speed, and related humidity. All data you require in meteorology, it should be of your daily time step only. Then what are the different hydrological data that you require? Because once you have put the input, the output has came from the model. After that also, the comparison of your simulation with your observed data also required, whether your model is working or not. If you have river discharge, you should have river discharge if you're modeling for only for your flow. If you're modeling for your soil erosion also, then you should have a suspended sediment load data also. And if you are modeling water bodies, then you should have a water body inflow and outflow. And if you are going to model the sedimentation process in water body, then you should have a sedimentation concentration data. Now, if you want the things related to agriculture also, like evapotranspiration and all those things, then you should have those observed data also. So here I'm talking about only the rainfall runoff process only, not about the other module which the SWET model is having. Then about the agriculture, the data, if you're modeling point, non-point source pollution, or you're doing modeling of your agriculture watershed, then you should have a management data. What are the different management that is done in that agriculture land? When the crop is sown, when the harvesting is done, what type of tillage operation you have done, what type of chemical and fertilizer you have applied in your field. So that will try to give you the help in simulation of your non-point source pollution, that especially in your agriculture watershed. That also you can do. Now the SWET output, the SWET normally used to, after all these input data, when you run the SWET model, the SWET used to give the output at these four levels. First is your HRU. So we already told the HRU, the hydrological response unit. For all HRU, the SWET will give you the output that may be in a runoff or a soil erosion, evaporation, whatever you require. Okay, so it will give you in the form of HRU. At each HRU, it will aggregate all HRU result, and it will try to give at your subbasin level or watershed level. That is all. That is second. Then the model will also give output for your stream. Okay, where you have defined the output of particular watershed. That point, it will try to give the output in terms of runoff and sediment yield at the outlet of your watershed in terms of your channel output. Then your reservoir, if you're doing the reservoir modeling, the model will also give you all the reservoir output, that is your inflow of a reservoir, and what is the evaporation from the reservoir, how much seepage has occurred from the reservoir, how much sedimentation came to the reservoir, how much it is output sedimentation of reservoir, all these things. So model output will be in at least 4 levels. The smallest one HRU, then your sub basin, and in the sub basin the channels are there, the output will be at the channel level also, and if the water body is there, it will give you the output at the water body level. All your agriculture related data will become at HRU level only, because in HRU only you have defined the type of land use. So these are the there in this way you will receive the output. So overall, when we talk about your SWAT model, it somewhat look like this. You giving the input in terms of digital elevation modeling, and this digital elevation model will try to define your hydrography of your area, and finally it will define your watershed. Okay, the number of watershed, it is a single or more, is depend upon your requirement. After that, when we are putting a land use and your soil, when we combine the land use and soil, we will get your this HRU data, the hydrological response unit, which are identical in nature. After that, you will put the weather stations, the weather data, rainfall, temperature, and other data. And what the SWAT will do, the SWAT will combine all these data and it will form a database. Okay, once the database is formed, now you know the different parameters in different files where you can modify, or you know that like if channel is there, what is the depth of channel, what is the side slope of channel, what is the width. So if you have the observed property of that particular stream from the ground survey, you can modify those property also. It's not like that whatever the calculated from the DM, they are correct. You can modify those properties also. Then you can do the editing for the calibration of your model. Then you can get the output, and that output you can compare with your observed data. So this is a complete flowchart how the model used to work to simulate the different hydrological process in your watershed. Now the other the things came now about the calibration and validation. Whenever you use the model calibration and validation is required. So the model will give you the ability to sensitivity analysis of the different parameters. Suppose I was modeling on runoff, and I don't know how the Manning roughness coefficient or Manning roughness coefficient for overland flow affect the runoff. So it will try to, if you have the observed data, you input in the model, then the model will do the sensitivity analysis, and it will tell you that which parameter is affecting more your runoff and the soil erosion. On the basis of that, you can do the calibration and validation of the model. Okay, and at the same time, when the calibration and validation we are doing, how will you justify that model is correct? For that, you have to do the model valuation. You can do the valuation from the visual basic drawing the graph between the observed and the simulated, or you can do the statistical comparison of your different parameters. So when we talk about this valuation, normally you have different parameters for the valuation of your model between the observed and simulated value. The ASC has given some guidelines. They recommended both the visual and statistical comparison, and they have given certain parameters in that I used to use every time the coefficient of determination, which will try to give you about the trend. So suppose this is your observed and this is your simulated. So this R scale will tell you about how your trend of your observed of your simulated is behaving. So that will give you the whether the model is able to simulate the continuous process properly or not. Second is your national efficiency that everyone use when using the hydrological modeling, and that is also a good the criteria for the evolution of your any hydrological model or modeling system. And this NSE is always depend upon the peak. If your all peaks of your rainfall, runoff and your sediment are matching, the NSE will be high. And the third is your root mean square. So it will also try to give you the relation between the observed and simulated value. If it is lower, it shows that it having a good link between your observed and simulation. Then second is your percentage bias, or we used to say the deviation also. So overall, how much observed is showing and how much simulation is showing, the difference between. So that if difference is less, it is good. If difference is more, the model is not able to simulate. But for the particular SWAT model, The Mauritius et al. In 2007, he has simulated, he has reviewed so many papers published on this one, SWOT model, and he has finally given the criteria for two parameters. One is NSC and one is the percentage bias. So he put in the very good, and satisfactory and unsatisfactory. So he said that if NSC is varying from 0.6 to 1, it is very good. If it is below 0.65, it is good, and if it is below that, satisfactory. So that this criteria which he has given is based on the review of your different publications with the people have done with the help of SWOT model. So you can also prefer this criteria for the evaluation of your SWOT model. Now, where you can apply this model. So you can apply this model in any hydrological foundation, especially your rainfall runoff modeling. You can use this model for your sediment transportation in your watershed or in streams. You can also use this model for nutrient and pesticide transport. You can use this model for the climate change impact assessment. You can use this model for your sedimentation analysis, and you can use this model for your land use change impact on your runoff and soil erosion. You can use this model for also your point and non-point source pollution. So I assume everything is covered. When we talk about flood also, if you're able to forecast the flood under climate change for the future, it will also tell you that you can also predict that what are the chances of flooding if your peak discharges increase. So these are the broad application. Otherwise, the people have applied in a different area also. But normally, the easiest way that we are applying in this all field, people have applied, and people are applying this SWOT model. So this is just a brief the overlook of SWOT model when you install how it is look like. So watershed delineation we used to do with your digital elevation model, which will help to define the stream and the watershed. Okay, and in that also you can define the reservoir here only. Only the important part is here, this stream definition. So when we talk about this area, so this area, the area where the flow direction and accumulation, so there you have to select an area in such a way that first order streams has to be generated. When the first order streams are not generated properly, the simulation process in your runoff will create a problem. So that you have to check. So these are the different tabs are there in SWOT model. When you install the SWOT model with ArcGIS, you will find one is the SWOT model project setup, then watershed delineation, HRU definition, then you are writing the input, then you can edit the SWOT, and finally the simulation. So this is your watershed delineation. Here you can give the land use and soil property to generate the different HRU, and that HRU is also dependent upon your choice. If you want to generate the more HRU, this soil file we have given, and this is slope. And if you want to generate the more HRU, so here is defined HRU definition, the land use percentage over subbasin and soil class percentage over land use. So this defined that minimum how much area is used to generate the HRU. If you increase this value, then less number of HRU will be there. And if you decrease this HRU, the percentage of soil and land use cover, it will increase your HRU. So if you have more HRU, the simulation process will be increased, but it will give you more appropriate results. So here you can give the weather data about your rainfall, temperature, humidity, and all those things. And there is already a US database already inbuilt in your weather generator that you don't have to use. You have to customize your own database. I think that tomorrow when Dr. Bharti is taking hand on this model, then he will tell you how to get this data for this model. Then the fourth one is your write input. When you go to the input, so what he will do, he will try to write all the input which you have given for the soil, weather generator, subbasin data, HRU, main channel file about the groundwater, water use management, pond, stream quality, watershed main file, and master file, and all those things. So here what the different properties is going in these input file, these are all default. Only the soil property will be the major, otherwise all are default properties based on your DM and what are the input you have given. And after that, it's your input. So automatically when you give the soil, this rainfall and temperature data, the model will take automatically the starting and ending date. And here one important thing is that printout. So you can take the output daily, monthly, or yearly, whatever you require, but the model time step is daily only. And these are the different output file which you can save for the further processing. So the model simulation will be look like, and it will you can save the result, and after that you can analyze the different results. So these are only the files which I have already told you previously also. So sensitivity analysis also you can do how much which parameter is sensitive, but for that you require the observed data. Now, this is the same process. Once you have the observed data, suppose you are doing for a flow, it will show you the different parameter which will be influenced to the flow. And for a particular HRE, you can select those parameter and you can do the sensitivity analysis based on your observed data. So that not now. This is the basic about the model, how the basic process, which is I think which I can cover in this simulated time, because it's a big model. It has also a good capability, and the maximum I can do. So here, because of the time, that here I have taken a case study about the use of SWOT model, which I have done for the reservoir sedimentation assessment. Okay, so I was talking about reservoir sedimentation assessment and all those things. So here I have taken a case study. So this is the general prospect about the sedimentation, because all reservoirs are in a problem of sedimentation because of high soil erosion, and that high soil erosion may be because of human activity or the behavior of rainfall pattern. Okay, so around 4,000 dams are India is there, and even the World Commission of Dam, they reported that every year 0.5 to 1% there is a loss of your capacity of your reservoir to store the water. But in India, it is more, according to the Central Water Commission. And it has been also observed, if those things happen in a continuous process, the dead storage is going to be filled and the reservoir may not be useful to us. So that is a normal overall picture about the reservoir. And now these days, the dam's construction is already decreased. But if we want to take the advantage from the previous dam and the reservoir, we have to think about the sedimentation. And when we talk about this sedimentation process also, I have put some methods which we are using: hydrograph, mathematics and computer models, hydrometry, mathematics survey, remote sensing. When we talk about all these methods, if I show you here this reservoir, these all methods we used to conduct on the reservoir only, the water spread area. And from there, you can find the sedimentation or the sedimentation rate. But the problem is that you will not able to find from where that soil erosion is occurring, why this sedimentation rate is high. So that is the negative point of this method. You know the rate, but how it is happening, you don't know. That's why sometimes this hydrological modeling prove an important tool to analyze the different process. So what we have done, we have taken Damodar catchment, which is a part of Damodar River Valley, and this DVC also doing a lot of soil management and water management activity in this catchment. It almost 11,000 kilometers square. Rainfall vary from 13 to 40 mm, and elevation is also very high. Temperature also like winter in northern country, and it is very famous for your different activities, especially industry and mining activities. And it has a lot of reservoirs, but mainly the three are there. One is Kolar, Tenughat, and the Panchal, which are these places. Okay, so because of this topography and the industry belt and mining, the sedimentation is very, very high in the reservoir. So we decided to use the SWOT model. We collected these data: rainfall, temperature, runoff, sediment, reservoir inflow and outflow data for all these three reservoirs, and satellite remote sensing data from Aster and Landsat data, and soil map and soil property we have collected. And we have done the model setup. So with the Aster DM, we defined the stream network. Then we laid out already watershed defined boundary map of Damodar Valley Corporation, and then we defined the output on these streams, and finally we delineated the complete catchment of Damodar, and then we prepared the land use land cover with the Landsat data, then soil map we prepared, and then finally we delineate the things in such a way. So this red dot are showing the real gauging station where the monitoring is going, and this triangle are showing the the dams, which is used for the storage, and they are also used for your hydropower generation, and even they have a very importance in flood controls. So finally, we have delineated the Damodar catchment with the SWOT model with the help of 30 by 30 meter DM resolution, and we compare the real field condition. So DVC is telling they have 472 watershed. We are able to delineate 411. The defined area 10,870 kilometers square, and we, with the help of a model, we got 11,000, which is 4% higher. That will not play that much role. If we have a higher resolution DM, we can generate. Average area, they put 23 kilometers square, and with the model SWOT, we came to 27 kilometers square. The reason is that if we have a higher resolution DN, the first order stream will be more generated. That is the only reason. Otherwise, if you see the range of watershed from small watershed large, it's almost same. So the model is able to generate the catchment properly. Then we have done the sensitivity analysis of the parameter for both the runoff and the sediment. For the 4 watershed, then we have the observed data. So we found that overland flow, Manning roughness for overland flow, hydraulic conductivity for the channels, and roughness coefficient for channel and the watershed play a very important role in runoff and sediment generation with respect to the other parameters like your some groundwater parameters, some parameter responsible for your high evaporation, or some are responsible erodity of channel. Then finally, what we got the sensitive parameters, and after that we done the calibration, and in calibration we found the calibrated value of these 4 watershed. And after that values, we done the graphical representation and the statistical analysis. If you see here, these 4 watershed, the observed and simulated are perfectly matched. And if you see the statistical parameters also, they are also indicating a close match between the observed and simulated value. And if you see here, suppose this here the rainfall is increased, here also the simulated and observed value is increased. Here it is decreased rainfall, here also simulated and observed value decreased. So it shows that model has the ability to simulate the runoff properly, and that the calibration also so. Then we have done this for sediment also. For there also we found the good result, but in some watershed not that much good. That because of sometime what happened, there is a high rainfall intensity which may be near to your gauging point, which erode more soil, but the model is not able to simulate that type of behavior. So it may be that, otherwise it is all good. Then what we have done, these watershed parameter, we upscale to the ungauged watershed, and then we done the calibration of reservoir inflow for the 3 reservoirs, Kunar, Tenughat and Panchak, and we find a very good agreement between the observed and simulated one. So it shows the model is able to simulate the things. And then what we have done, we done the validations for the different years, and there also we found a very good result for runoff and sediment, and even for the reservoir inflow. So overall here the model is showing the behavior that it can simulate the runoff also good, sediment also good, and your reservoir inflow also in a proper manner with a if you have the proper data or ground truth data, it will be able to give you the. So now what we have done the prioritization of the critical area of Damodar catchment. So if you see this first map, this is the map which is prepared by the organization DVC, and the second map we prepared with the SWAT model. If you see both we're not able to identify that which is prepared by which one. So this is the model output, this is the input, and that we prepared on the basis of your output of your 5-year data from 1997 to 2001 average annual sediment yield. So when we talk about SWAT model, we have found that define the category according to the Indian Institute of Soil Science. So low are 50 watershed, that is from 0 to 5 tons per hectare per year. Medium, which is 5 to 15 tons per hectare by 84, and high is more than 15 tons per hectare per year. So almost these are matching, that there is not much difference. When we done the matching analysis with the help of GIS, we found that 80% of there's a match between the SWAT model priorities and the DVC. So here it also shows that model is much capable of simulating soil erosion at the watershed level also. Then we done at the HRU level also. At that level also, this I have shown at the watershed level, but we have done the at HRU level also. And then the HRU level will tell you which HRU is responsible for the high soil erosion. So the model will identify the high soil erosion area. Then you can implement some practice which can reduce the transport of sediment to your reservoir, and your reservoir will be having a more life. Then what we have done, we calculated the reservoir sedimentation rate with the Gruen curve, and second we have calculated from the sediment which is inflowing to the reservoir and which is going out of the reservoir based on the inflow and outflow of reservoir and the sediment concentration. But that main important point is here, the sedimentation concentration what we are talking, it's just a average sediment concentration. The variability of it's not there. So we calculated the trap efficiency, sedimentation trap efficiency from both the method, the model, and from the Gruen curve to normalize the things. So what we found is the Gruen curve. I think there is no need to discuss. That is based on your capacity inflow ratio of any reservoir. So what we found that we found the average sedimentation deposition rate in Kunar is 1.44 million meter cube per year, which was against the DVC of 1.73. So somewhat it is higher. low as compared to the ground survey. But when we went to the Tenu Ghat, it's almost same, and when for the Panchat also, it's almost same. So in the Kunar, the difference we found that is because of the different management activities which has been done, and we have taken into the consideration. Okay, the problem is here when we are taking this management activity into the consideration, so that the model will take for complete simulation. But in the real field, what happened? Those activity was done, but not done for all years. That's why this difference is coming. Otherwise, all three the reservoir have. So what we concluded here, if we do the hydrological modeling, especially for reservoir sedimentation, what we will get, we'll know the area which is having a high soil erosion. We will able to calculate the sedimentation rate every year. We can put some management practices to reduce the soil erosion, and which can reduce the soil inflow or the sediment inflow to the reservoir, and that will enhance the life of reservoir, which cannot be done by this traditional method like remote sensing, hydrometry, or bathymetry, because they talk about only the sedimentation rate. They don't talk about the reason which are responsible for the high sedimentation rate. So you can reduce the sedimentation rate with the help of your river basin management, river channels erosion management, or by reservoir. So that we are all doing this, we can do. So the model don't have the ability to include, but you can include the check dam, ponds, and the soil cover also you can take, and trusses and you can go for a change in a slope or the modification of your slope of your watershed. So that also we have done the simulation, and we found like check dam or trusses will be helpful in reducing the soil erosion. So overall, I conclude that I have given one case study which will define that model which simulate the things accurately as compared to runoff, sediment yield, and the soil erosion is also simulated very, very accurately. And we done the comparison because we done with the runoff at the watershed level and sediment at the watershed level. Then we come to at the soil erosion at the watershed level. We compare the observed data; it was highly matching, and then we compare the sedimentation rate also, and that is also having a good correlation with the observed one. That gives the thing that the model has the ability. Only the thing is that the starting process of the model, the data preparation of model will take you the time, because the learning of model is important, but at the same time, the person who is using this model should have a hands-on on your remote sensing and GIS, because a lot of data has to be prepared in remote sensing and GIS, and then only that model you can use for the different purpose. So I like to finish here. There are so many things are there in the model, which I think I cannot discuss at this time in a short duration of time. But overall view, I think you may have all understand, and those who are much interested, I will tell you one thing. You can have an overlook on your, I think if it is visible or not to you. You should have an overview of the SWET. I told you it is a public domain software. It is a free, and they have a website. You can go and download this SWET for your QGIS also, RGIS also, and you have different other tools also to prepare your data. It's not like that you are doing manually. They have a lot of the programs are also there where you can prepare. And other important thing, you can find the literature of SWET database. In my opinion, there are more than 10,000 SCI publication has been done on this, and all these databases managed in this site properly. And whatever if you want to go for a soil erosion, you can just search soil erosion, and they will give you the database will give you the exactly all papers which are related to your soil erosion. Like here, the categories are also written. Oh, I'm sorry, it is not giving. Some other things also defined. Otherwise, you can see here the primary category, hydrologic only, polluted, climate, best management factor scenario, like that you can. And even for the complete understanding, they used to organize a workshop because of lockdown. Now these days the workshops are not there, but you can get a lot of workshops are there offline in India also. And for the better understanding, they have a group also. They have a Gmail SWET group okay, where you can join the group and you can put your query if you have any problem in installing or editing the database or in calibration and validation. They will provide you complete help is there. Different the developer and different users are also there to have. And now these days, the Sweat is also mixed with your mod flow to have a more realistic approach towards your groundwater. And those who are much interested in these are the different manual of Sweat is there, which you can read for the complete understanding of your processes. And like if you are the beginner and you want to run a model, so if you go to the data, there is a global update weather data, all global weather data, and all data is there. So you can download the data and you can prepare your setup and you can do. For India, there is this one. For India also, DM is there, the weather generator, all grid, IMD 1x1 grid data is there, land use data is there, land use water based data, soil data, everything is there. Only the thing is that it's not of higher resolution, it is of a lower resolution, which will not give a good result, but it will enable you to learn about the different things. So if you have any query or any question, I like to take here. So you can go to the soil and water assessment tool and the website, and you can gather the different things. And if you have any query, you can write to me also.
Dr. Sanjit,
if anyone have any query,
you please check the
one by one. I will
chat box. There is no query.
Since in flow I have like when you are taking
actually I wrote you
number of rainfall stations, rainfall gauging station, or number of rainfall data.
1 hour.
So normally what we used to do for hydrological modeling, we used to calculate average aerial rainfall with the help of Thiessen polygon or isohydrate, but the Sweat does not take any of these methods. If you give the 10 station, the Sweat will take the 10 station, and the station which is nearest to the watershed in terms of your distance between the centroid of watershed and to the station, the Sweat will take the data of that particular station. So doing this process of finding the aerial average rainfall of particular catchment or basin will not work in Sweat. So that is also a weak point, but sometimes it used to put a good capability of your Sweat also, because he is able to take as much as station you can give him that. And second, other important point here, sometimes the Sweat is not able to simulate high rainfall depth. If the rainfall is more than 250 or 300 mm, sometimes it's not able to simulate. Third important point, you can go for as number of watershed. Up to the 10,000 watershed, you can go into the Sweat model, and you can simulate as much area. Only the thing is that the simulation process will be more. If you are
so you please see the chat box. There is one question. Right.
See, inappropriate calibration of sediment transport, I found in my model. At some point, the model is not able to calibrate the sediment point. But in all cases, it will not be there. The inappropriate that is happening because of the sometime maybe the data also. Or I have given a case, because when we take about the model, we assume that whatever the rainfall is happened equally distributed. But in real thing, it may not be happen. And the area which is near to gauging point, where high intensity rainfall occurred, because of that high soil erosion may be happen. But in model, that type of things cannot be simulated. That's why sometime at some point there will be a mismatching of things may be there. Or sometimes the properties of your soil what we are giving, or sometimes your TM resolution also play an important role. So these may be the certain point. Otherwise, we cannot say that every inappropriate. That depend upon the parameter we have selected. For reservoir sedimentation model, if upper part of the dam gauge station is not able, how to validate the model? I'm not understand what you mean by upper part of dam gauge station. When we talk about dam or reservoir, we should have an inflow outflow property and the different characteristics related to dam, especially your water spread area, how much of the storage as principal spillway at full reservoir level. And about your question, if I if I'm getting right, you are talking about rain gauge station. So at present scenario, the places where your reservoir are there, the rain gauge stations are there everywhere. The intensity of rain gauging, rain gauge in India is very high. I assume that you will find, and if it is you are not able to find, then you can take the IMD 1/1 grid data, or they have 0.25 kilometer to 0.25 kilometer data also, that will be solve your purpose. Inflow data discharge not available. No, it will be in India. It is available. All data is with the Central Water Commission. You will find the data, or you will request to the dam authority. They will give you the inflow and outflow data of that particular dam. Or you can visit their website also. For 1 month or 2 months, they used to update the reservoir data. Is there any influence of rainfall for? Yeah, definitely there is an influence of your rainfall on the sediment analysis. The rainfall intensity play a very important role. That process I have not explained. The rainfall intensity that normally in the model I-30 we used to take, but it play a very important role. That will be the only responsible for the detachment of your soil particle from the soil, and that indirectly dependent on your soil texture and soil structure and the soil moisture content of your soil.
Okay, actually, rainfall is going to affect the stream flow or the runoff. And the runoff or stream flow has direct bearing on the sediment analysis. So in that way, yes, this has an impact. Okay, Dr. Yadav, you may not listen me, but we would like to finish here. I hope today that we conducted 3 lectures, and it was a great learning experience for me also, and I hope this must be for you people also. So there are a few questions from the participants regarding attendance and the feedback. Regarding feedback, I know that you should go to the AICTE portal. There you may get link to provide the feedback. So we will close here, and I would like to thank Dr. Sanjeet for his nice deliberation. So because he is not listening me, so I have to write in the chat box. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we'll meet again. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Umesh, good. Asit Singh, CF, good. Naresh Adavi, yes.
Sir, for tomorrow's hands-on session, is there anything that could be shared about downloading and installation about the SWAT model and all?
SWAT model you can install. Do you want me to share the link?
No. If at all there are any instructions for that, then we may follow that. Otherwise,
I assume that you people have got SWAT model installed in your laptop.
Okay.
If that is there, it will be easier for you people to learn, because tomorrow I have requested the expert to run the SWAT model live from the start. How to import the special data and how to overlay all those data and how to run the SWAT model. So it will be better if you have SWAT model in your computer. You can do together.
Sir, but during that hand-on session, I think some data the expert will use. So that data should be shared before that session.
Okay, fine. Let me see. Let me check it. If I get those data, I will just share with you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And sir,
fine.
Today
so
we
I
really
will
had
close.
a session.
Umesh, yes.
Yes, sir. Today we had a really very good session, sir.
Yes, we have tried to bring some young people who is still working on these models, because
sir.
they will be in that better place
Yes, sir.
to explain all those things. Because if you see that model means it's very
Yes, sir.
easier to explain on PPT, but when you
Yes, sir.
start clicking on the model, it becomes very difficult. That
Okay, sir.
which
Yes, sir.
icon? Yes, that's the problem. So,
Okay, sir. Okay.
so let me try how best we can serve you people so that you can learn better.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much, sir.
Okay, then we'll meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.